What up, everybody? It's your big homie Snorlax coming to you live, pre-recorded. That's corny. That's really corny. But today I'm gonna talk about something that surprised me, and that's the movie Family. So, for the Juggalos, if you don't know what this movie is, it is a movie starring Taylor Schilling, which you probably know best as Piper from Orange is the New Black. She's the main character. She's an aunt that has to watch her. She's basically estranged from her family, kinda estranged. I'd say not completely. She's probably about as estranged as I am. So, hasn't talked to her dad in years. Kind of ignores the rest of her family, but like her sibling kind of gets through every once in a while. So that's her character. It's got a lot of Juggalo stuff in it. So when they filmed it, that's probably jumping ahead too much. So the opening of the film, right, is her in face paint at the gathering of the Juggalos. It's a fake one that they make, right? Like I think they did it in Georgia. It does have a very similar feel to the gathering of the Juggalos, but it is very different. It's nowhere near how vast it normally is. It's very, very small compared to what it normally is. So I'd say my best estimate is there was 150 people in the crowd, 150 to 300, whereas normally there's thousands and thousands of people there. So there's a big difference there. But I digress. So the movie starts off and with her walking through the gathering and an overdub of her saying, basically talking about the gathering and being like, what the hell am I doing here? Or like, you're probably wondering what I'm doing here in a place filled with people at the Juggalo gathering with people painted with their faces painted, in a place that I'm likely to get stabbed. Doesn't start off very good for Juggalos there, and honestly it doesn't get better for Juggalos until like the last 10 minutes of the movie. The last 10 minutes really kind of drive home a very good message for Juggalos, and I was kind of iffy before it got to this point. I was really iffy about the movie. I was like, wait a minute, wasn't this made by people who like say they're cool with Juggalos and everything, like, right? So but it does end up being good, so that's a bit of a spoiler. So basically the opening is fairly funny. She does the whole spiel about what the hell is she doing there. She's a businesswoman, yada yada, and that's not where she belongs. And somebody throws a 2-liter at her, pegs her right in the head. It's full 2-liter, just bottom of the 2-liter, just boom. It's a 2-liter of Foda, which is a fake soda. I guess they couldn't get the rights to Fago, so that's pretty hilarious. But next scene is her in her job, and I can probably relate to her well more than I should be able to, but as someone who works in corporate America, I completely understand her character and how insane her character is. about all of the bullshit you have to do at work. That makes you HR appropriate, because I am not an HR appropriate person by any stretch of the imagination, no matter how hard I try. But so she's at work. She basically, she has no understanding of when is a proper time to say something, and that's something that plays throughout the whole film. She basically just has no filter, and that's perfectly fine. I have a problem filtering myself as well. Anyone that's hung out with me in person knows that, in any kind of public place, and I've embarrassed a lot of people, so I can definitely dig that about the character. So the movie starts off, she's like she's at work, she's going through a normal day. Her normal day is her basically making everyone pissed at her. From that point, she has been avoiding her brother, who's been trying to get in contact with her, and it's so he can try to talk her into watching his daughter so he can go out of town. Basically, his wife's mom's dying. They need to go pack up her stuff because they need to move her into hospice. I'm sure somebody can relate to that. Not me. I don't give a shit. If you're dying, you can die perfectly fine at home. So she reluctantly does it. It's pretty funny trying to watch them argue about it. Taylor Schilling is fucking genius. The very first part, like the first half of the movie, she is just venom. Like, and I don't mean like symbiote venom. I mean like she's just poison to everything that she touches, that she, you know, by social standards and by societal standards should care about. She's just kind of poisonous to it and horrible, just because she doesn't understand how to keep her mouth shut. So she's very brash, I guess is the nice way to say that, to where, like, I'm trying to come up with an example. I've only seen the movie once, and I hate doing reviews on movies when I only see it once, just because I don't have everything in here like I should. So towards the beginning, when they're after they finally talk her into it, they give her a list of foods she can't have, and she's like, she basically is like, so can she actually not have them, or is this just like a, you know, like gluten thing, you know, because not really a lot of people are allergic to gluten, and they're like, well, she's sensitive to it, and she's like, and then she's like, so does she die from it? And they're like, and basically the brother's in the background just having to tell her what to say to get out of the conversation, and it's pretty hilarious because she doesn't understand the social cues there, and she doesn't understand what to say and what not to say in that conversation. So it's and I can completely understand that, because I'm fucking weird. So she goes for the first day. It's initially that she's supposed to be watching her for a day. The first day goes actually all right. Like, her and her niece get along okay. They're both fucking weird. The niece is kind of bullied at school. She's supposed to be taking ballet classes because her mom wants her to be normal. But she ends up skipping the ballet classes and going and taking karate next door instead. So after that, so the aunt, which is Taylor Schilling, figures that out pretty quick. She goes to pick her up from ballet. She's running a little late, and she finds her in the karate place, and she's cool with it. She doesn't understand why her parents don't know, and honestly, neither do I. Like, I never gave a fuck about what my parents thought, so it's a weird concept for me to be like, why don't you tell your parents? Because I just never gave a fuck, I guess. Like, if I'm gonna get in trouble, I'm gonna get in trouble. Like, I just take it. But I don't know. I guess that's lack of survival instinct. So her and her aunt have a talk about that. She says she doesn't like doing ballet, that it doesn't feel right to her, and that she's kind of fucked up. So they go to a gas station, which is where you meet the first Juggalo in the movie. She's getting gas. She gives the niece money to go in and get some snacks. While the niece is in there getting snacks, this kid named Baby Joker, I think his name was Dennis in the movie, and his Juggalo name was Baby Joker, starts talking to her, and they hit it off. He's exactly what you think of when you see a fam kid. So if you don't know what a fam kid is, it's one of those Juggalos that go around everywhere and they say whoop whoop to everyone, like everyone's supposed to know what that fucking means. And the kid has a fucking rat tail. Holy shit. Like, I haven't seen a rat tail since I was like 5. In Memphis, they called it a Gucci. I don't know why. So that's, like, I remember, like, adults being like, oh man, you got a little Gucci. Like, I don't know why the fuck they called it that, but that's old Memphis slang for you. So the kid had a rat tail, and it was a fucking long rat tail. Right? Fucking long ass rat tail. Kid spoke so ignorantly. It was insane. I was really embarrassed at that point. Like, I was wearing my Hatchet Man charm. And I was like super embarrassed at that point, because I was like, oh god, anybody else in this theater is gonna see this and they're gonna automatically think I'm as ignorant as this guy, because that's how people work. And the kid is fucking dumb through the whole movie. It's pretty hilarious. So so they end up hanging out the next day. Well, let me back up a little bit. So while she's in there talking to Baby Joker, the niece's name is Maddie, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that. So Maddie and Baby Joker are talking, hitting it off and everything. The aunt gets a phone call, and basically she gets told that a meeting got moved up a couple of days. And so she speeds off to try and get some stuff, and she completely forgets that her niece is in the store and leaves her there. And so she ends up coming back, picking her up, and then leaving again. So they have dinner, and the niece tells her about the girls that pick on her at school. The aunt basically says, "Why do you put up with that shit? Just defend yourself." Right? And so she does the next day. While the aunt is in a meeting, while she's at work, she's not in the meeting yet. Maddie ends up roundhouse kicking one of the girls in the back, and it's pretty funny to watch, actually. Roundhouse kicks the chick in the back, and she says something that is supposed to be about juggalos, but it's not real. It's like the Juggalo code or something. And it's like there's no real Juggalo code. There's no real code to that shit. So she gets a call from the school. The school says, "Hey, you got to come down here right now." And she's like, "I can't really do that. How about 8 o'clock tonight?" And they have this argument. She has this argument over the phone with the rep from the school. They eventually agree on 1 o'clock. And then she finds out that she has to have lunch at 1 o'clock with some potential clients for her firm. And it's so she goes. She ends up getting drunk because these guys are alcoholics and all they do is drink. Right? So she ends up getting drunk, Ubering to the school drunk, and goes to this meeting with the principal drunk. Like, I could see me doing this. More realistically, I would be on acid. But, yeah, so it's her and the karate instructor. And they're like, she tries blaming the whole thing on the karate instructor. And then the principal starts going off, like, just kind of being like, "How dare you be drunk when you come here?" Like, she kind of gives her a lecture. She doesn't come out and say you're drunk or anything, but she asks her, and she's like, "How dare you? Why would I do that and come here?" But, yeah, it's a pretty funny exchange. I feel like this movie is more for adults than it is kids. I don't think Juggalo teenagers are gonna get it nearly as much as your like 25, 26 up crowd would. It's definitely a indie kind of artsy kind of film. It does do a lot of good things though. We're getting to that part. So the girl gets suspended, but she was doing what she was supposed to do by standing up to the girls. So the aunt is like, "Well, you're kind of doing what you were supposed to do. I'm not going to really punish you that bad." So instead of watching a couple of hours of TV, she only gets to watch one, and that's the only thing she does as punishment. Right? So she does that. She's supposed to go make her buy a dress, and that doesn't happen. The girl doesn't want to wear a dress, so they end up getting her a pantsuit. And the girl roundhouse kicks a mannequin while they're there. While they're there, there's this one girl that's about the same age as Maddie, and she wants a few of the dresses in the store, and she's sitting there yelling at her mom, like, "No, I want all of these fucking dresses. Fuck you, Mom." Like, that kind of thing. Like, that kind of kid that's yelling at her parents like that. Yelling specifically at her mom. And so Taylor Schilling's character gets fed up with it and just yells out, "Look, bitch, nobody here likes you. Pick one fucking dress. She's told you already you're not getting more than one. Just pick one and get the fuck out of here because no one likes you." So they end up getting security called on them, which is pretty hilarious, and I've done that before. Oh, shit. I like the movie because I can really relate to Taylor Schilling's character. Um, so they do that. Eventually, they bond. They do some more bonding. Like there's this makeover scene that you've probably seen online if you've done any research on the film. There's a whole makeover scene where where she's trying to do a makeover on her, and it does not end up well at all. So the girl doesn't feel accepted by society. Maddie doesn't feel accepted at all by society, and that's a big part of the film. Just like her aunt doesn't feel like she belongs with humans. She doesn't feel like she's accepted in society. She feels kind of outcasted and everything, and I think that's something that we can all relate to on some level. I think everyone at some point feels like they're an outcast for some reason or another. I think more people than not, definitely. But so the next night is the dance. The aunt eventually gets pissed off at her about something. The mom of Maddie basically says that they're going to pick her up after the dance. So the aunt's pissed off at her, and then she makes her go to the dance, basically, which is something that she originally told her she wasn't going to have to do. Maddie's upset about it because she doesn't want to go to the dance. She's already been told by her aunt that she doesn't have to go, so she's not happy. Instead of going to the dance, she starts walking down the side of the road. The aunt is upset because they had a little argument, and she goes back to the school. Maddie's not there. There's a bit of an altercation between Taylor Schilling and one of the people that let people into the dance. So that is, she didn't get let into the dance because she was wearing a pantsuit, woman's pantsuit instead of a dress. She was also wearing a cape that looked like the Burger King's cape. So they get into it, and they tell her that they couldn't let her in because she wasn't in formal attire, even though she was in a fucking pantsuit with a cape. It's like, how much more formal can you fucking get? So obviously not the right kind of formal for this school. But so then there's a couple of preteens that are making out in the hallway, and the girl is rubbing on the guy's dick in the middle of the hallway. It's pretty horrible because these kids look like they were actually underage and making the movie. So it's pretty horrible. But she goes off about that, being like, "Oh, y'all let that shit happen," but she wasn't formal enough. Valid argument at the end of the day. But so she leaves. She goes find her. They do their whole little makeup thing, and then she just starts throwing up a shit ton. In a parking lot. So she ends up getting taken to the hospital, and her parents come running in, and there's this big fight between Taylor Schilling and the parents. And that's when they tell her that she's allergic to tomatoes, which is one of the things on the list from the beginning, where they were like, well, she's oh shit, what I said it earlier. They never said she was allergic to anything. They said it was something that made it sound like bullshit, basically. Right, and I'm sure we've probably all had those people which are like, oh yeah, I can't have this or I can't have that, because it's one of those bad things to do. Oh, I can't have gluten, right? Like, and that's not to discredit anyone who genuinely can't have gluten. If you can't have gluten, that fucking sucks, because that shit's everywhere in our food. At least it is in America. But if you genuinely can't have it, I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying that it's a lie for you, but the number of people who say they can't have it versus the number of people who actually can't have it is astronomical. So I can understand the characters, thought process there. So they get into it. The aunt leaves, and she ends up. She packs her stuff up at her brother's house, goes back to her house. She feels shitty for the next day. She actually starts treating her co-workers with some respect, right? Like, she doesn't say mean things to them. Like, she thinks about what she says before she says it. So there was one worker in particular who was pregnant at the beginning of the movie, and she's pregnant throughout the whole movie. But at the beginning of the movie, she goes into a room and she's giving this other girl advice. And she's basically like, don't get pregnant. That's basically the end of your career. While the pregnant chick is right there. Like, so it's pretty funny. So she goes back to work. She starts doing nice things for, the other people she works with. She gets invited out to go eat with them and everything. She eventually goes to, eventually comes back around for the day that she would go to ballet class and skip that to go to karate. So she wants to see Maddie, so she goes to the karate class to try and catch Maddie and say hi to her and apologize and everything for how they were towards each other. Maddie's not there. Her parents are next door at the ballet place, thinking that, her daughter's there, supposed to be there. So they're there to pick her up, and then they get told that Maddie hasn't really shown up for any ballet classes in months. And so the parents are wigging out. As they're outside talking about that, and they're, going apeshit about where the fuck is our daughter, the aunt, Taylor Schilling, and then the karate instructor come out, and they've both been drinking, and the dad is just impressed with the karate guy's black belt, and they're yelling across like the breezeway or the walkway at each other about the black belt and how much work it is to get one, while the mom is sitting there yelling about where the fuck's my daughter. It's pretty it's funny. So the aunt says, well, she might be at this gas station, which is the gas station where she met Baby Joker. And so they go. She's not there, but the guy that works there says, oh, she's Dennis may be at the gathering. And so the dad's like, oh, Magic the Gathering, she's with a bunch of nerds, she's fine. And then like the guy working there that knows Baby Joker, the guy that works in the convenience store, he's like, oh, no, the Juggalo gathering. And they're like, what's a Juggalo? And then so the karate instructor's like, just take like every bad person you can imagine in the world, and then put a lot of drugs and a lot of vandalism in there, and that's basically where she's at. And so they're worried as shit, and they drive down there. The aunt ends up so they're trying to find a way in. They don't there's one guy that they found that's got a wristband. He basically wants to see tits before he'll even sell it to him. So the aunt steps up and is like, yeah, I got tits. So they put her on what looks like one of the trolley trains from the gathering, one of the courtesy trains that drive around the campground. And while she's on there, they paint her face for her, and they throw some Fago on her, or Foda, as it's labeled in the movie. So she gets to the main area where you would have like the main stage, and she's looking around for Maddie. She doesn't find him. She ends up finding going around and asking people if they've seen an 11-year-old girl there, and everyone's kind of like, why the fuck would you bring a kid here? Right? Like, I've been that guy. I took an 11-year-old with he might have been 12, but I did take an 11 or 12-year-old with me to the gathering one year. We did have a good support system for this, though. It wasn't a kid that was gonna run off or anything. He's normally well behaved, so I've been that adult that takes an 11 or 12-year-old kid. If I wasn't watching him, or if he wasn't with me, he was with my friend Sean. If he wasn't with Sean, he was with Spoon. Yeah, I mean, we had a series of adults that were cool with watching the kid, and that's it worked out for the kid. He actually counted every titty he saw, which was super weird. And he saw triple digits. And I remember there was like this one Hawaiian chick, and he ran up to her and just like licked her nipple, and he was like, "It's salty," and it was hilarious. After I was like, "Man, you can't, like, that's a little bit much." Right, just like running up to a chick that's walking without a shirt on and just like licking her nipple. That's a bit much, even for where we're at. Like, that's a bit much. Don't do that. But so I mean, we laughed about it at the end of it. The chick wasn't exactly mad about it, but I don't think she knew how old he was either. That's fucking horrible. He's of age now. Anyways, so she ends up, I forget the actress's name, but she was in American Pie as well as Orange is the New Black, and I think there was only one person that made that jump. So, with that, that character is, an adult, and she's talking to her, and she's like, "Man, I'm missing this kid," and she's about 11 years old, yay tall, brown hair. She's like, "You lost a kid? Why the fuck would you bring a kid here?" And she like gives her that whole spiel, which she's probably gotten before, right? Like, and she's like, "Oh, I haven't seen her, but honestly, I'm on a lot of drugs right now, but I'll keep an eye out for her." And the girl happens to be in line to be in that year's Miss Juggalette competition, and so Taylor Schilling ends up getting tossed up on stage with all of those girls, and she eventually takes the microphone out of Shaggy's hand and is like, "Hey, I'm looking for a little girl. She's my niece, yay tall, brunette, has anyone seen the little girl?" And so everyone kind of shuts down, like the whole gathering, like the little crowd that's there. Again, it's not a big one. It's not actually relevant to the actual gathering of the Juggalos. It's very small in comparison. But the whole thing, like the music stops, the crowd goes kind of quiet, so that way they can actually understand what she's saying. And people are like, "What's her name?" And so it's kind of cool, because this actually shows how a lot of Juggalos actually are, and like how they do kind of band together to help other people and one another. So it's pretty cool. So everyone that's at that particular point kind of drops what they're doing, and they start looking around and seeing if there's a kid there that matches that description. They don't find her, but basically Violent J kind of takes off and pulls her along with her, and like they get on a golf cart and start looking around, for a kid. And they eventually find her. She's in a tattoo, like she's at a little spot where someone's doing tattoos, and so Baby Joker is getting a tattoo, I believe, and she tries running, doesn't work. She's 11-year-old kind of little chunky chick. She ain't running as fast as Taylor Schilling. So they do their little heart-to-heart thing, and Taylor Schilling's character is kind of like, you know what, this place is kind of weird and fucked up, but if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do, and yeah, they go back to the parents. The parents are actually just sitting there talking with some people, like at a campsite, basically. I think they're smoking weed with some of the people there, and just kicking it. And they end up learning like some of the Juggalos' names that are there, which is pretty hilarious. And like Juggalo names, like Throat Cutter and stuff like that. It's so fucking goofy. So that's the end of the Juggalo portion of it for the most part. Basically, they leave there after being helped by the Juggalos. The Juggalos kind of put aside everything to help her find that little girl, even though they don't find her. That's pretty cool, and I feel like that's actually a accurate representation of how Juggalos are at the Gathering of the Juggalos. I've seen my fair share of fights at the Gathering, but anytime that there has been somebody that's missing for whatever reason, whether it be somebody that I knew there, didn't know, whatever the case may be, people have always been helpful there. If you haven't eaten in a day there and you need something to eat, like I've seen plenty of people just walk up to other people like, hey man, you got like a corn dog or something, or like you got like a bitch beater laying around that's old that you're not going to finish, like, and people hook them up, it truly is that scene, I think, does more for Juggalos in mainstream media than I think has ever been done for Juggalos in mainstream media. So the forum that is there, with that being a film that is being nationally distributed in a movie theater and will probably be on syndication on movie channels at some point, that's probably the best press anyone is going to get for Juggalos. I don't think it's ever going to get any better than that. To wrap up the movie, basically, because there's like 2 minutes left in the movie at that point. Basically, the aunt goes back to work. She starts just kind of, acting normal, I guess, quote unquote normal. Like, she starts to actually care about other people instead of just caring about her job, and stuff changes for her. Like, she's not as stressed. She's not a villain at her job anymore. So that's pretty cool. Like, I understand how that character is at work. It is something that I've dealt with personally. So I am in corporate America as much as I don't want to be. It's where my life has taken me. So I can definitely understand the transformation there. You know, like it took me a long time personally to get to a point where I wasn't just caring about making sure that I'm advancing in my career, where my employees and my coworkers and my superiors became more than just job to me. And that's the arc for that character basically. Her family becomes more important to her, you know, like her niece becomes an important piece of her life. And so the final scene in the film, not the credit scene, but the actual final official scene in the film, is her going over to her brother's house with a couple of bottles of wine and to have dinner, and to hang out with her niece. You know, so she's had her story arc completed. She's grown as a human being, and that's the end of that film. After that, once the credits start rolling, they do interviews with juggalos who were at that fake gathering, because the way that they did that was they actually put on a kind of a mini gathering, you know, like an official mini gathering almost. And people were just talking about the good things that have come out of it for them, the acceptance that has come out of it for them, just not feeling alone in society. That's the overall general idea that they gave, that you come off with from the interviews, and that's pretty accurate. I mean, there's always bad people in every group, you know, but the movie does a good job of showing your average person that is a juggalo. The kids in the movie are fucking kids, and they're stupid because they're kids. And then you have adults in the movie who are like, man, I'm kind of fucked up right now. It's really fucked up that you would bring a kid to this, and I'm kind of fucked up right now, but yeah, that's important. I can definitely help with that. You know, like, and that's how adults are. You know, I don't know what actually makes me an adult. I don't know if I'm considered an adult. I'm 32 years old. The only thing different about me at 32 and when I was 18 is when I was 18, I was somehow making more money then than I am now. But when I was 18, I just didn't give a shit about anybody, right? Like, I didn't even give a shit about myself, really. But even though I was a juggalo, right, I, like, the whole sense of community was not something that I cared about. Being a juggalo was not what helped me find that. Getting older and learning to appreciate the people close to me is. I eventually did learn how to appreciate the people I care about in a much better way than just completely ignoring them and shutting myself out of the world. But that the movie does a good job of showing how adult juggalos are. It does a good job of showing that juggalos aren't gang members, because they're not. I don't know if I'm considered a juggalo anymore in my life, because I honestly don't give a shit one way or the other whether someone is a juggalo or not. I think most people would say that makes me not a juggalo. I don't really care one way or the other if I am or not. I just have love for people, right? And that's a big piece of what this movie is about, is being able to open yourself up in love regardless, right? And that's, at its essence, that's kind of what being a juggalo is about, is being able to be open and accept people. regardless of how weird or different they are than you. So it's pretty it does a very, very good job of that, and it does a good job of doing it from both the point of view of someone who thinks juggalos are kind of batshit crazy, and it does a good job of doing it from the point of view of juggalos. And it's a pretty funny fucking film to boot. Kate McKinnon is in it as well. She plays the neighbor that is kind of bitchy and shitty. And Kate McKinnon kind of always plays, I've noticed, at least recently, Kate McKinnon just kind of plays Kate McKinnon in all of her movies. She has all of the same kind of acting chops in every film that she does. She's really weird. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I think I've grown tired of her as an actress. It's kind of like Chris Farley. I love Chris Farley to death, and it sucks that he died, but he never got to really be anything but Chris Farley. He was always Chris Farley in his movies, whether it was Tommy Boy, Black Sheep, oh god, what was that last one? The Western, whatever the fucking Western was, where he's traveling across the country in the olden days of America, or if it's like one of the Adam Sandler movies that he was in. Like, he was always Chris Farley. He had a very specific way of acting, and it never changed. And Kate McKinnon's kind of got the same thing going on. She's got a very particular role that she fills in every single film, and it's literally the same role in every film. It's starting to get boring, honestly. It kind of was with Chris Farley too, though I do have Chris being a fat kid and me being a fat fuck. I do have certain admiration of him because of that, because he's basically me that got popular and got money. So there's a certain admiration from that a fat guy made it, you know. So I can relate to that, and I'm sure there's people like that out there that can relate to Kate McKinnon like that. But as far as acting goes, she really does need to get some different roles. She's probably a very good actress, but we don't see that in anything. We don't see her getting to play any other kind of role than just the same role over and over and over again, and it gets fairly fucking boring. Taylor Schilling, I haven't seen a lot of stuff from. I saw her in Orange is the New Black, and she's pretty good in that. She is actually different in this film, right? Like, and so that there's like, you can tell that she's got some acting chops there, just because of how different this character is from her character in Orange is the New Black. She really did. That is something that I was thinking when the movie was ending. I was like, like she really, this was very different than her other character that I've seen her play. I haven't seen anything else she's been in. If I should have, sorry. Let me know about anything else she's been in. I'll check it out. She does a fantastic job in this film, though. As someone who's lived in that corporate life that she does, granted, I'm nowhere near a VP role and never have been. I probably never will be. But as someone who's been in the corporate side of shit, I can completely understand that character way more than I ever thought I'd be able to. But she plays that shit to a T, man. Like, it's fucking, I'm pretty sure I've probably had some of the conversations that she had in that movie with some of her employees. I'm pretty sure I've had some of those same exact conversations in my life at my job. This has actually gone on a lot longer than I thought it would. I didn't make any notes because it's not a very long movie, but it is absolutely worth your time to check out. Whether you're a juggalo, not a juggalo, you hate juggalos, you're a juggalo that hates the rest of humanity, it's worth checking out. There was a good bit of laugh out loud moments at just how awkward shit gets in the movie. One thing that was really cool, there was probably about 10 people in the film when I went, releasing on the same day as Avengers Endgame. Probably not the best thing for this movie, but I'd say probably about half the kids in there were juggalos, the other half were not. There was a really old couple there, and this is what struck me most about the movie, was this old couple. They were sitting a couple of seats down from me, and at the end of it, they were watching the interviews with juggalos, and they just looked curious, and it was a good curious. Like, they just had a almost enjoyment but curious look on their face, and to me, that looks like, it looked like someone that grew up possibly with a different counterculture movement, and they probably had a different idea of what counterculture is these days, and they were looking at it and seeing modern day counterculture that is good, you know, like, if they've ever heard anything about juggalos before, it's probably not good. But what they were seeing in the film from actual people there, they were getting a completely different story from, and it looked like they were having an open mind about it. And that's the most important thing about it, is people keeping an open mind and being able to accept that, yeah, these people are different than me, but it's okay. And I think that that's what the movie did very well, is that the people who don't know what juggalos are, that probably think juggalos are bad, I think this is the best possible thing. I think I've said this a couple of minutes ago. This is the best possible thing to get people to just be cool with juggalos, from a mainstream point of view. You have your news articles and stuff that come out every year at the gathering, about the gathering and about all that stuff, and if a news article is done properly, it is only giving you facts and it is not giving you opinion, and so those are neither going to be good nor bad for our community, or the juggalo community, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if I am a juggalo again. I'm cool with juggalos. I just don't give a shit if I am one or not. I don't give a shit if you are one or not. It just doesn't matter to me anymore. A title doesn't matter to me anymore. Right? So that's where I'm at in life. But God damn it. I started to sneeze and it won't fucking come out. The inside of my nose got ripped out today, and I've been sneezing randomly ever since. Anyways, yeah, so that is all about family. If you don't like juggalos, go see it. It is a fantastically funny film. I was really surprised by how just funny the film is, regardless of the juggalo stuff. Like, it's a genuinely funny film. Taylor Schilling is pretty fantastic in it. She does an amazing job of just being that weird person from the office that doesn't understand how to be there. Again, I've been that person for so long. That's all I know how to be. So it's come to a point where people at work understand me a lot more than they used to. I think I've probably changed a bit because of that. But it's, it is what it is. She's pretty fantastic and she's pretty hilarious in it. And the karate instructor is pretty hilarious as well. I do not remember what his name is. I think his middle name is Tyree, but that's not going to help you at all. But yeah, so that's it, Juggalos. Juggalos, other people, whoever, go see Family. It's actually pretty good.